right. All right. See. I think you can probably see me, but I'm using the back camera because it's better quality. So, all right. So this is how you feed your starter. Okay. So you have the regular starter here. This is like the one, I'll give you a little bit of this right here. And I'll explain like the rubber band and stuff too. So I use a scale because I think it's actually easier to feed the starter with a scale. And I use mason jars because I just have a bunch. So I tear the mason jar, and then it's going to be called 1 to 1 to 1. So when you hear like 1 to 2 to 1, so most people do 1 to 1 to 1. That's what I've always done. So what that means is 1 part starter, 1 part flour, 1 part water, which is by weight, not by measure. Some people do it by measure. I just think weight is easier because I don't have to get my measuring spoons dirty. I'm actually just going to feed a small amount because I'm probably going to bake. I think I might bake on Thursday or Friday, and I just want to have really good starter. But today I'm just going to make a small amount. So I'm going to do like 30 grams maybe. That sounds good. We'll do 30. Okay, I actually got 35. That's fine. And then I have a container of my discard. So this is starter that I'm not feeding. So after I took out the 30 that I'm going to feed, 35 that I'm going to feed, then I'm going to put the rest in this discard because it's good. You don't want to waste it. And you can actually bake with discard, which is kind of when I do my cheater bread, that's what I do, is I use my discard instead of freshly fed starter. So anyway, I'm going to put the discard, unfed discard, in my other jar here that I use. Okay, so then I'm going to zero out the starter, and I'm going to do 35 grams of water. And if you're a little off, it's fine. Not the end of the world. Nothing's going to worry. And then I do 35 grams of total of flour. Now I'm almost out of my rye. Like I barely have any. So I'm just going to put a little bit of rye because I might want to feed it. I got to go to the store. But this starter loves rye. Like I'm telling you. Most starters do. Like rye flour is like great. But you can't do, I mean you could do 100% rye, but I don't know if anybody's ever done it. I think the bread would come out kind of a weird texture maybe. This is not the best jar for flour. I should probably get a spoon. All right. So remember, we want 35 grams. Okay. I got 36. That's fine. Don't worry about it. All right. Then you are going to just stir it up. Stir, stir, stir. Kind of looks like dough. Sometimes I stir the water and the starter together first just because it makes it a little bit easier to mix everything together. This is a small spatula. But I do like to use these silicone spatulas because then I can get the wall kind of nice and scraped down because then I can see if the starter has grown. Because the point of feeding it is basically the starter that I put in there first, right, has all this like active live yeast and active live bacteria and like all this good stuff. And that's what eats the flour when you make the bread. And by eating the flour, the little microbes produce gas. And the gas is what makes your bread rise. So that's why you want a really healthy starter when you're baking. So I've had this unfed starter in the fridge for probably months. But I kind of want to bake because I have Thursday and Friday off, and so I might, depending on what happens, I might bake some sourdough. But I have other stuff like a funeral and stuff I got to go to, so I might not. We'll see. So once you get it all mixed in pretty good, it doesn't have to be perfect, but pretty good. Not like real lumpy, but it might be a little lumpy. Let's see if you can sort of see it. Sorry, it's hard when you're... So I'm going to scrape it down so that it's even. And You want to do that because you want to see it rise. You want to know how much has it risen. So that's where I use the rubber band. You want your starter to double. Some people say you want it to double in so many hours. I don't ever pay attention. I just want to make sure it doubles. Like when it's really healthy, it usually will double within like 4 hours or so, is what I think is what people say, if I remember right. Some people in the beginning will feed their starter twice a day to get it really good, but it's got to double before you feed it. You don't want to feed it too early. You want it to eat and do all the things. Okay, so the rubber band, this is kind of a big jar for the amount of starter that I'm feeding, but the rubber band is marked the top of the starter. And so when it doubles, I'll know, it's going to go over the rubber band. So it gives me a place to know, like, because or else you look at that and you're like, I don't know if it's actually doubled. The best place that I have found to store it, because I keep my house very cold, because I'm cheap, is in the oven with just the light on. Oh, and you do want to lightly cover it. You don't want it to seal it because you want that gas to get out. But I just use like a loose fitting lid or like a loose plastic wrap just to keep it protected from things falling in it or drying out. I did that once. Had to reconstitute it. But it's very hardy. Like starter is, it's hard to kill it, honestly. Too much heat will kill it, so you don't want to put it in your oven and have your kids turn it on. That's bad news. You'll kill it. What I do, I'll show you what I do. Excuse my mess. I put a piece of painter tape on my on and off button on my oven so that when I go to turn it on, like I have to, it reminds me I have to touch it. That's how I store my loaves once I cook them. But yeah, I just leave it in I just leave it in there with the light on and then I'll see it double. And yeah, so that's how I feed it.